Our environment correspondent Richard Wilson reports from the Antarctic.
All around the Antarctic Peninsula, the coastal ice shelves are breaking up, forming icebergs that drift until they melt away. In 50 years, temperatures here have risen 5 times more quickly than in the rest of the world. 3 years ago, scientists recorded a single berg half the size of Norfolk. It was the remains of the Larsen A ice shelf, whose massive southern neighbour is now starting to disintegrate.
It's separated by a peninsula of land and some islands that help to pin the ice shelf. But its area is 4 times greater, and it's exhibiting the same sort of characteristics that its neighbour Larsen A did before it broke out.
The penguins adrift on this berg live in a fast-changing world. 5,000 square miles of ice shelf have already disintegrated. The Larsen B could add a further 8,000 square miles of ice to the total.
It's actually 2 seed heads, because there's another one there.
Now grasses are colonising this once frozen and rocky shoreline. 5 years ago, this ground was barren.
It's a surprise. I mean, it's a logical process given that temperatures are changing, but it's quite impressive to actually be able to see it in front of you.
These can be harsh conditions for the scientists monitoring the changing climate. The summer will soon turn to the long winter freeze, and what happens here next could affect weather patterns worldwide. Scientists fear that the massive ocean currents that move off the ice shelves could slow or stop, causing climate switches everywhere. For Britain, this could mean severe disruption to the Gulf Stream, which keeps the weather untypically warm for a country so far north. The breakup of the Larsen B is just the latest in a series of similar events in Antarctica. As the climate gets warmer, this frozen wilderness is changing fast, and with consequences that could prove disastrous for humanity. Richard Wilson, BBC News, Antarctica.
They were once dished out like Smarties, but now doctors have learned to treat tranquilizers.
She's a clone of an adult sheep and genetically identical. Since then, scientists have speculated the same could be done with humans. Today's report from the Human Genetics Advisory Commission makes it clear human cloning is illegal. The report asks for people's opinions about whether human cloning should be acceptable as a way of treating infertility. But the Commission's chairman dismisses the science fiction idea of thousands of identical clones being produced. It would be inefficient, unsafe and morally repugnant, he says.
If you actually clone somebody, in a fundamental sense, I don't think it's going to work, because the pregnancy is going to be different, the mother's going to be different, the birth's going to be different, the year of birth's going to be different. And when that poor soul understands the perverse vanity of the parent who wanted a clone of himself, he's going to be very disturbed.
This American, Richard Seed, has said he wants to offer the cloning technique to infertile couples, but Sir Colin called him wild and irresponsible. There is one area where the technique might be valuable and more acceptable, producing tissues like skin, for example, which could be used to treat people with burns. But if cloning poses scientific and ethical dilemmas, a new claim today from Australia seems equally bizarre. A doctor there wants to grow human sperm in the testes of mice. He says it could help some forms of male infertility, though he hasn't yet got the funding or the final ethical approval for the research. James Wilkinson, BBC News.
Queen Mother